He promised to love my son like his own. When I met Marcus, I was 28 and a single mother. My son Noah had just turned 4. I still remember our first coffee date. How Marcus leaned across the table, smiled, and said, "I've always wanted to be a dad. And any man who loves you would be lucky to love your son too." Those words stuck with me. They felt like a warm blanket after years of cold stares and judgment. I had been abandoned by Noah's biological father before he was even born. It was just me and my baby. Through sleepless nights, fevered cries, scraped knees, and whispered lullabies, no one ever stayed. So when Marcus came into our lives, with his steady hands and kind words, his patience, his laughter, I believed. He met Noah 6 weeks after we started dating. I was hesitant, but Marcus insisted. If I'm going to love you, I need to know all of you. And Noah is part of that. And to my surprise, they clicked. Like two puzzle pieces I never knew were missing from each other. He taught Noah how to ride a bike. He cheered at preschool graduation louder than any dad in the crowd. He tucked him in with dinosaur voices and read the same bedtime story 10 nights in a row. We moved in together 6 months later. Noah called him Marky at first. Then one day, just out of the blue, he called him Dad. Marcus cried that night. Held Noah like he was made of stars. And me? I thought, maybe this is what a family is supposed to feel like. When Marcus proposed, he did it with Noah holding the ring. "Mommy, will you marry Daddy?" he said, eyes wide, little hands shaking. I said yes. Not just for Marcus, but for Noah too, because I believed I was giving him the father he deserved. We got married in a small backyard ceremony. Just friends, family, and a flower crown on Noah's curly hair. And soon after, Marcus brought up the idea of adoption. "I want to make it official," he said. "Noah deserves my name. My protection. Legally, emotionally, in every way." I was touched. Scared, but touched. After many nights of talking, I agreed. The adoption was finalized when Noah was 6. Marcus signed the papers with trembling hands, and I thought, we're a real family now. Nothing can break this. But I was wrong. So very wrong. It started subtly. Little things. Like Marcus correcting Noah when he mentioned when Mommy and I lived alone. "No, buddy, that never happened. We've always been together, haven't we?" Or erasing old photos from the fridge. Removing pictures from before we met. Replacing them with our memories only. Then came the school forms, where he filled in parent 1 and left parent 2 blank. When I questioned it, he smiled. "It's just quicker this way. Don't overthink it." Then one night, I overheard a conversation I wasn't meant to hear. Marcus was on the phone with someone. I don't know who, but I'll never forget the words. "She's unstable. If anything ever happens, I want full rights to Noah. She was just a vessel. I'm the only parent he remembers anyway." I dropped the glass I was holding. It shattered across the kitchen floor, like something inside me had too. He called me just a vessel and started rewriting our history. I didn't confront him that night. I didn't scream or cry or demand explanations. I swept the broken glass. I tucked Noah into bed. I kissed his forehead and whispered, "No matter what happens, I will always be your mom." But my hands were trembling, because deep down, I knew something had changed. Or maybe I had finally opened my eyes. The next day I went looking, not out of paranoia, but out of a mother's instinct. And what I found? It chilled me to the bone. Noah's baby album was gone, the one I made when he was born. With his hospital bracelet, the first ultrasound, pictures of his first tooth, his first birthday cake smeared all over his cheeks. Gone. In its place, a new album, neatly labeled, "Our Story, the Harris Family." Page 1, a photo of Marcus holding Noah at age 6. The caption? "The day our family began." Page 2, their first fishing trip. Page 3, a Christmas photo where my name was never mentioned. Page after page, as if I hadn't existed until he said I do. I searched the whole house. The attic, the garage. I found my old album in a sealed box beneath layers of winter coats we hadn't used in years, tucked away like trash. I sat down on the cold floor and flipped through it. Each page felt like a battle, a fight to remember, a reminder that I was there first. Through every fever, every milestone, every sleepless night. And then the worst came. I got a call from the school counselor. "Mrs. Harris, I just wanted to clarify a few things from Noah's family history. According to the updated file, you're listed as a legal guardian, but not the biological parent. That doesn't seem correct." My breath caught. "Updated file?" I asked. "Yes, your husband dropped off the new paperwork last week. It includes a note saying you were added to Noah's life later on." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. "That's a lie," I said, my voice shaking. "I figured something was wrong," she replied gently. "Noah talks about you constantly. He says you're his real mom. When Marcus came home that evening, I was waiting. The baby album in my hands, his signature in my phone, the lies written in official forms. Why, I asked, why are you rewriting our life? He didn't even deny it. He just looked tired, annoyed. Because he needs stability, not confusion. He's better off with one narrative, a clean one. A clean one that erases me? You're emotional. That's why I had to step in. That one sentence, broke something inside me. You adopted Noah to protect him, not to own him. You don't get to erase the woman who gave him life. He scoffed. I gave him more than life. I gave him a future. I stepped back. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew then. He wasn't just trying to erase me. He was preparing to replace me. Legally, emotionally, permanently. And I had to stop him. Not just for me, but for Noah. That night, I made copies of everything. The school paperwork, my original birth certificate copy, adoption records, photos with timestamps from Noah's first years, audio recordings of Marcus's dismissive words. Because if Marcus wanted a clean narrative, then I was going to give the world the messy, raw, and honest truth. He filed to remove my name, and I fought back. 3 days later, the envelope arrived. It was cream-colored, thin, official. But the weight of it felt like a boulder in my hands. I opened it slowly, already knowing, already hurting. Petition to amend birth record. Filed by Marcus Harris. Requested change. Remove name of biological mother. Reason. Custodial revision and clarification of legal parentage for child's best interest. I dropped the papers on the kitchen table, and I didn't cry. Not this time. Because when someone tries to erase your blood, your name, your truth, you stop bleeding, you start fighting. I called my lawyer, a woman named Tara Vega, divorce attorney, child rights advocate, and mother of 3. I didn't need someone who would listen. I needed someone who would go to war with me. Tara was calm, measured, but even she sounded shocked. He's requesting the state to remove you entirely? That's not just unethical, it's dangerous. We'll file a counter petition immediately. But Emma, we're going to need every ounce of proof that Noah is biologically yours. I have it, I said. And we'll need a statement, one that makes the court feel the pain. I'm ready. Over the next 72 hours, I became an archivist of my own life. I pulled out every hospital bill from Noah's birth, the OBGYN visits, the birth certificate from the hospital with my wristband still stapled to it, photos of me holding Noah right after delivery, eyes puffy, hair a mess, but love pouring out of every pixel. I gave Tara the recording of Marcus on the phone. She was just a vessel. We added that too. Noah was only 8. Too young to understand the details, but smart enough to feel that something was wrong. Mommy, he said one night, did I do something bad? Daddy's been really mad at you. I knelt down and hugged him tight. No, baby, you didn't do anything wrong. Some people forget what love really means, but Mommy will never forget. And I will never leave you. 2 weeks later, we stood in court. Marcus wore a Navy suit. He didn't look at me. His lawyer argued that Emma was emotionally unstable, that her biological connection does not outweigh the emotional damage caused by her presence. They used words like disruptive, inconsistent, non-essential. I was sitting 10 feet away, but it felt like 10,000 miles. Then Tara stood up. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't attack. She simply told my story. Emma carried Noah for 9 months. She raised him for 6 years alone. She held him through croup coughs, night terrors, and scraped knees. She gave up jobs to attend school plays. She gave up relationships to keep him safe. And now, because a man signed a paper and claimed to be the better parent, he wants to erase her name from her own child's history? The courtroom fell silent. Then she played the recording. Marcus's voice echoed through the courtroom. She was just a vessel. I want full rights. She's too emotional to matter. Even the judge raised an eyebrow. When it was my turn, I stood. Hands shaking, heart racing, but voice steady. I gave birth to Noah. I held his hand the first time he walked. I stayed up every night when he had the flu. I remember the way he laughed at ducks and the way he said noodle when he meant noisy. I am not a vessel. I am his mother. And no matter what he calls you, he will always know who brought him into this world. Marcus said nothing. He didn't look proud anymore. Just exposed. The judge didn't rule that day. But I didn't need a verdict to know I had already won something bigger. My voice back, my strength, my name. The court gave him a chance to defend. But the truth spoke louder. The courtroom was quieter than I had ever imagined a place could be. No whispers, no shifting papers. Just the weight of truth still lingering after what had been said. Marcus looked pale. Not defeated yet, but certainly unsure of himself for the first time since this all began. The judge turned to him. Mr. Harris, You've filed a petition requesting to remove Ms. Emma Larson from the birth certificate of her biological son. We've heard her statement. Now, we're listening to yours." He stood, smoothed his tie, cleared his throat. "Your Honor," he began, "I love Noah. He is my son. I have raised him for the past 3 years as if he were my own. I have supported him financially, emotionally. I've taken him to school, to the doctor, to birthday parties. I watched him speak. The same performance I'd seen so many times in our home, now with a courtroom as his stage. But Emma," he continued, "she's unstable. She reacts emotionally to everything. She once left Noah crying because she had a panic attack. She gets overwhelmed. And I don't believe she provides the structure he needs." Tara leaned over and whispered, "Here it comes, the narrative shift. This isn't about biology," Marcus added. "It's about what's best for Noah. He needs one steady, reliable parent. He doesn't need confusion about who's who. If we give him one truth, one parent, he'll grow up grounded." The judge raised a brow. "Are you suggesting that eliminating his biological mother from his records will ground him?" Marcus hesitated. "It's not elimination, it's simplification." A wave of gasps moved through the courtroom, and for the first time, Marcus seemed to realize. He said the quiet part out loud. The judge leaned forward. "So you believe it is in a child's best interest to be told a simplified version of their own history? One that excludes the mother who birthed and raised him for 6 years?" He tried to recover. "That's not what I meant. I just think she's holding him back from being who he can be." Tara stood immediately. "Permission to respond, Your Honor?" "Granted. May I remind the court that emotional expression, especially from a mother, is not the same as instability. What we just witnessed from Mr. Harris is not concern. It is control. An attempt to rewrite a child's life to fit his preferred image of a perfect home." The judge nodded slowly, then looked back at Marcus. "Mr. Harris, if your petition is about what's best for the child, why is there no mention of consulting Noah's therapist, pediatrician, or school counselor? Why are there no supporting evaluations? Why did you submit this without notifying the other legal guardian?" He stammered. "I didn't think I needed to. I thought—" The judge interrupted. "You thought wrong." A few moments later, the judge called for a recess. 15 minutes. But in that short time, Marcus walked out of the courtroom without looking at me. Hands in pockets. Head down. I didn't follow him. I just sat with Tara, staring at my hands, still trembling, but now with something else. Relief. 15 minutes later, the judge returned. Everyone took their seats. "I've reviewed the evidence. The petition to remove Ms. Larson's name from her son's birth certificate is not only denied, but I am ordering a full review of Mr. Harris's fitness as a co-parent moving forward." A hush fell again. "Mr. Harris's actions indicate a pattern of coercive control. Noah's emotional well-being is at stake here, and I will not permit legal documents to be manipulated to serve one person's ego." Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not yet. Because then, furthermore, the court acknowledges Ms. Larson as the biological and legal mother of Noah Harris and affirms her continued custodial and parental rights without restriction. Marcus looked like he'd been struck, but I felt something bloom inside me. Not victory, not vengeance, but vindication. When we walked out of that courtroom, Tara whispered, "You did it." And for the first time in years, I believed her. He tried one last move, but I was ready for it. I thought it was over. I thought that courtroom ruling was the final word. That the fire had burned out. That the man who tried to erase me would finally retreat into silence. But Marcus had one more card to play, and it came in the form of a letter from his lawyer. Notice of intent to pursue full custody. Mr. Harris contends that Ms. Larson is mentally unfit to serve as a custodial parent. Mr. Harris is prepared to provide a home, income, and emotional stability that Ms. Larson allegedly lacks. Further, Mr. Harris cites previous panic attacks and emotional outbursts as evidence of an unstable environment. I stared at the paper in my hands. Hands that once rocked Noah to sleep. Hands that wrote bedtime stories. Hands that now shook with fury. I called Tara immediately. "He's coming after custody. He's still not done." She didn't sound surprised. I've seen men like this. When control is taken from them, they don't let go quietly. But don't worry, Emma. He's stepping into the wrong battlefield now. This time, we didn't just prepare evidence, we prepared witnesses. My therapist, Noah's school counselor, our pediatrician, 3 of my closest friends who had seen me through motherhood. Messy and beautiful and raw. Even Noah's teacher submitted a letter. Noah speaks of his mother with love and security. She attends every parent meeting. She sends notes in his lunchbox. She cries when he sings at recitals. That boy is not growing up in instability, he is growing up in love. But what sealed the case was Noah. No, he wasn't put on the stand. He was too young, too innocent. But his voice, his drawings, his letters, his truth, they spoke volumes. One crayon drawing showed our little apartment, a crooked kitchen, a window with a plant, me, him, and a giant red heart between us. He had written, "Me and Mommy live here, we're safe here." When we walked into court again, Marcus looked different, tired, tense. The smile he wore like a mask had faded. He thought he had control, that a mother's imperfections were enough to discredit her. But what he didn't realize was, being imperfect doesn't make you unfit. It makes you real. And real love is what children remember. His lawyer read a bland, generic statement. Tara stood up and lit the courtroom on fire. My client has never claimed to be perfect. She has claimed only this, that she is Noah's mother. That she has been there through every moment of pain, joy, confusion, growth, and change. That she has fought to keep his world whole, while the petitioner has sought to rewrite that world to suit his own ego. She paused, then handed the judge Noah's crayon drawing. The judge studied it, carefully. "Children don't lie through art," he murmured. Then he looked at Marcus. "You do not own this child, Mr. Harris. Parenthood is not a possession, it is a commitment. And the court does not take kindly to those who weaponize the law in order to punish the people they once claimed to love." Then came the ruling. Final, sharp, unshakable. Emma Larson will retain full physical custody of Noah Harris. Mr. Harris may retain visitation rights, under supervision, pending psychological evaluation. Any further attempts to modify custody without substantial change in circumstances will be denied. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then I did. I exhaled all the fear I had held inside me for months. After court, Marcus approached me in the hallway. Alone. "You think you've won?" he hissed. I looked him in the eye, steady, calm. "I didn't win. Noah did. He gets to grow up knowing the truth. Knowing he was never abandoned. That his mom never stopped fighting for him. And that no one gets to erase real love." He turned away, and I walked out. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with relief. Noah was waiting outside with my best friend. When he saw me, he ran, jumped into my arms. "Are we okay now, Mommy?" I smiled, held him close. "We always were, baby." I had to rebuild our lives. But we were finally free. The days after the final ruling felt surreal. There was no celebration, no popping champagne, no wild victory. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like air finally returning to your lungs. Noah and I returned to our routine. School drop-offs, breakfast pancakes, bedtime stories. But even in the ordinary, everything felt different. Because for the first time in years, there were no lies looming over us. No whispers behind doors. No fake smiles from across the dinner table. Just us. I moved out of the apartment we once shared with Marcus. I sold the bed we used to sleep in. Donated the couch he picked out. Threw away every last trace of the life I once thought was love. We moved into a smaller place, 2 bedrooms, sunlight through real windows. The first night there, Noah crawled into my bed. "Mommy, can I still call him Dad?" I froze. Then nodded slowly. "You can call him whatever feels right to you. But never forget, you came from me. And I will always be your safe place." He hugged me tightly. "You're my forever mom." That night, I cried into my pillow. Not because I was broken, but because I had survived. Because my son saw me, still loved me, still believed in me, even after all the pain. Weeks passed. I started therapy again. Not to fix something, but to understand it. To ask myself, why did I stay with Marcus so long? Why did I trust someone so fully, so blindly? And how do I never lose myself like that again? My therapist asked, "What did you lose in that relationship?" I answered without hesitation. "My voice, my value, my memories." Then she asked, "What did you gain?" And I smiled. My strength, my son's trust, and the power to never let anyone rewrite my truth again. I started writing again. Blog posts, open letters, one titled, "When They Try to Erase You." Write louder. It went viral. Thousands of women messaged me. That was me too. He tried to take my son. I thought I was alone. I wasn't just healing. I was helping others heal too. And in that, I found purpose. One morning, Noah brought home a drawing from school. It showed a tree, strong roots, big branches. Him, me, and a little speech bubble above his head. This tree grew because my mommy didn't give up. I hung it on our new fridge, right next to our chore chart and the photo we took on the courthouse steps when it was finally, officially, just us. Marcus faded into the background after that. He took the court-ordered supervised visits, said all the right things, but something in him had changed. He couldn't control the narrative anymore. And he knew it. He even tried to act like the better man for a while. Sent gifts, wrote letters, asked to talk as co-parents. But I didn't engage. Because healing doesn't mean welcoming poison back in. It means drawing new boundaries and defending them fiercely. One day, Noah asked me, "Will you ever get married again?" I laughed softly. Maybe, but only if they love you as much as they love me. And if they never try to change who we are? He nodded like a wise old man in an 8-year-old body. Then they'd better be pretty awesome. We both laughed. And it echoed through our little home. Not a house of perfection, but a home of honesty, of healing, of truth. The day he said, "I know what you did for me, Mom." It was a Thursday. Just an ordinary day. I had just picked Noah up from school. He was in the back seat, kicking his shoes off and complaining about math homework. Miss Jensen gave us 3-word problems, Mom. 3. Who even uses math in real life? I smiled. I do, every time I check how much we can spend on ice cream. He laughed, and we drove home. That evening, as I was folding laundry, he sat down next to me with his sketchbook. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, baby." "When people say I was adopted, does that mean Dad isn't my real dad?" I froze. That word, adopted. Noah hadn't used it before. He'd heard it in whispers, maybe from other kids, or maybe he remembered more than I thought. I turned to face him. "Marcus adopted you when we got married. It means he chose to become your dad legally. But I'm your birth mom. I carried you. I raised you. You were always mine, even before anyone else showed up." He was quiet. Then he nodded and asked, "So why did he want to take your name off my birth certificate?" My heart stopped. "Who told you that?" "I heard you on the phone once, and I saw that big envelope from court. You looked so scared that day." I couldn't lie. Not to him. "Yes," I said softly. "He tried, but he didn't succeed. Because the truth always wins, Noah. And no one can take away where you came from." He looked down, fiddled with his pencil. Then he said something I will never forget. Ever. "I know what you did for me, Mom." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I know you fought for me. Even when I didn't know. Even when I called him Dad and didn't understand. You never gave up on me." My chest tightened. I tried to speak, but my throat closed up. Tears welled in my eyes. "Noah, you don't ever have to apologize for loving someone. Even someone who hurt us. You were just a kid." He looked at me with eyes that were too old for his age. "But now I'm not just a kid. I remember. I remember you crying in the bathroom. I remember him saying you were too tired to be a mom. But you still packed my lunch. You still read me stories. You still stayed." I broke. Not from pain, but from healing. Because after all the courts, after all the lies, after all the silence, my son finally saw me. Really, truly saw me. He leaned his head on my shoulder. "Thank you for staying," I whispered back. "Thank you for being worth it." That night, after he fell asleep, I stood at the foot of his bed and just watched him breathe. This little boy. The one I almost lost. The one I almost let them erase me from. But they couldn't. Because truth leaves footprints, and love leaves roots. And Noah? He had grown into a boy who knew exactly who he came from. I didn't need a certificate, or a courtroom ruling, or a stamped piece of paper. Because now, I had his words, his heart, his understanding, the birthday gift that brought it all full circle. Noah's 9th birthday was coming. He asked for a simple party. No clowns, no bounce house. Just a few friends, some pizza, and chocolate cupcakes with blue frosting. And a sleepover. "Nothing big, Mom," he said. "I just want it to feel like us." So I made it happen. The invitations, the snacks, the playlist of his favorite songs. But Noah had something planned too. Something I didn't know about. The morning of his birthday, he woke me up at 6:43 a.m. Still in his pajamas, eyes bright, holding something behind his back. "You always give me gifts, Mom," he said. "But this year, I wanted to give you one first." I sat up, confused, sleepy-eyed. "Honey, you didn't have to." He pulled out a manila envelope. Inside? A card, hand-drawn, simple. "To my real mom." My throat tightened. He continued. "I asked Miss Jensen if I could do a special project for you." He handed me a folded booklet. Inside were pages titled, "My First Memory with Mom." When she made me feel brave. The day I found out she fought for me. Why she's my hero. Each page had his drawings. Some wobbly stick figures, some crayon chaos. But every word, every sentence, hit deeper than any court ruling ever could. "I don't remember being in your belly," he wrote. "But I remember your hugs. I remember how you smell like vanilla and soap. I remember how you always stayed when I was sick. I remember that you never left." On the last page, there was a printed photo. It was from when he was 5. Me, holding him at the beach, my hair flying wild in the wind, his arms wrapped around my neck like I was the only safe place left in the world. Beneath it, he'd written, "No paper can tell me who my mom is. She's in every part of me. She's my real history." I couldn't hold the tears. I tried, but they came anyway. I pulled him into my arms, held him tighter than I ever had. "This is the best gift I've ever gotten." He smiled into my shoulder. "I just wanted you to know I remember everything, even when I didn't understand it before." That night, after cake and games and laughter, Noah pulled me aside. "Mom, I told my friends you're my hero. They asked if you wear a cape." I chuckled. "What did you say?" I said no, but she has eyes that see everything, and a voice that never gave up. And just like that, everything we'd been through, every courtroom, every tear, every night I thought I might break felt worth it. Because my son didn't just survive the storm. He saw who held the umbrella. There was no headline, no parade, no public vindication. But in our little home, filled with blue frosting and laughter, one mother and one son knew the truth. And that was enough. Because no one can erase love that's been earned. And no one can replace a mother who never stopped fighting. Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.